Okay, we'll move into the next public hearing, which is 2.2. Does staff have a report for us?
I do. Get the PowerPoint loaded up. So this is a Camelia Townhome residential project that the commission is reviewing tonight. I just want to make it clear that the commission will make a recommendation to the city council on the resolutions that are in the agenda packet. So the project's located at the southern end of the city border near Marietta, where Palomar kind of S-turns into Marietta. The site's about 25.9 acres. It's quite hilly. And as I noted, it is adjacent to the Marietta city border. The applications that the commission will be looking at tonight are the initial study mitigated neck deck that will cover the CEQA requirements, change of zone from rural residential to R3, which is our general residential zone, and then tentative tract map 37156 for condominium purposes, and then a plot plan for development of the 163 for sale townhomes. I think there's been some speculation that these were low-income affordable housing project. This is not. These are for sale townhomes that are being proposed with this application. So the CEQA process, Bob Stark is here from my consultant team, Michael Baker, who prepared the environmental document. We circulated the MND from January 19th to March 3rd. We received 6 public comment letters on the draft MND. As in accordance with our CEQA guidelines, we prepared formal response to comments package, otherwise known as our final MND. And that package was mailed to each commenter 10 days prior to tonight's hearing. The initial study concluded that all environmental impacts have been adequately mitigated, and they're included in the plot plan conditions of approval matrix. The change of zone is being requested, as I noted, from RR to R3. The R3 zoning is consistent with the existing MHDR land use designation. That's our medium high density residential designation. That land use designation existed, as far as I can remember, from 2003 and probably further back. When we incorporated, we inherited the land use plan that the county gave us, and that had the same land use designation as it does today. So there is no general plan amendment, just a zone change to accommodate the townhouse project. The project on the 25.9 acres has a density of about 6.3 units to the acre. Falls within that 5 to 8 units range and is just a little below the mid-range. The R3 zoning also allows for attached townhome and condominium developments as proposed tonight. And then findings have been made in the staff report and in the resolution to support a recommendation of approval to the City Council for the zone change. This shows the existing zoning. It's RR. Properties to the north is RR as well. The Marietta properties to the south has an R1 zoning, which is a standard single-family zoning. And then the exhibit on the right shows the color version, what the R3 would be for the property. A map is needed to subdivide the property for sale townhome project. There's 20 parcels that will make up the map. 5 are open space parcels. Each parcel exceeds the minimum lot size and lot width and depth standards of the R3 zone. And then again, findings have been made to support a recommendation of approval for the map to the City Council, subject to conditions. The plot plan is really the development plan for the project, 163 townhomes. Each 2-story building has 6 units. There's about 30 buildings overall spread out throughout the site. The applicant is providing 3 floor plans with 2 and 3 bedrooms to choose from. Those units range in size from 1,400 to just a little under 1,700 square feet. All units will have a 2-car attached garage with direct interior access. And there's visitor parking throughout the site as well. The architectural style has been characterized as a Spanish and Monterey theme. We did apply 363 architectural enhancements around the buildings. The project also provides for recreational passive open space areas for the future residents of the community. The project site sits about 20 feet higher along the southern property line in the existing residences in Marietta. when the project first came in, the applicant had shown a site plan that showed homes, most of the homes facing southwards. So as part of our design review comments in the beginning, we asked them to rotate at 90 degrees so that the end of the buildings would face southwards and not 6 front doors times, I think there was like 5 buildings originally, 30 units. So that dropped down to about 10 buildings that will be facing southwards. There's only 1 unit that you will really be able to see out of the second floor loft window. And I'll get into some things about that in a sec. You know, we did that primarily to minimize the visual impacts on existing residences in Marietta. You know, I might as well say at this point, we have received a number of comment letters from residents in Marietta. I think a few more came in, or about 4 more came in just before the meeting. So you have all those, the comments were emailed to you. The Commission is aware of the issues that are here, listed in each of the letters. And the applicant also had 2 neighborhood meetings and agreed to several things, and I think they'll have additional measures that they want to let the Commission know about. So in terms of the windows facing southwards, they're going to put in fixed frosted windows, so that will obscure views looking out of the units into the backyards. It's important to note at this point there is a 20 to 25 foot buffer between the top of slope. So the site sits higher, and as the site comes down towards Palomar, you know, that height variation lessens. But there's about a 20 to 25 foot buffer at the top of slope that will be landscaped. The landscape plans also show that's a slope leading down to the property line, which will be the rear property line of the Marietta residence, will also be landscaped. So the applicant decided to increase that landscaping. So when we do get construction plans in the future, they'll show the enhanced landscaping on that buffer area as well as the slope area to help obscure views. And then I was told that the 6-foot block wall at the top of slope would be constructed. That would also help obscure views looking southwards, as well as shield lights from the driveways, the cars that will come down the driveway heading south into the individual garages. The plot plan as proposed is consistent with the MHDR land use designation, which allows this kind of use. It also implements various land use and housing element goals and policies. And the plot plan meets and exceeds the minimum development standards of the R3 zone. And findings have been made to support a recommendation of approval to the City Council, subject to conditions. So this is a site plan, colored landscape plan. It kind of shows what is proposed. This is a conceptual site plan. Obviously, we'll get a final landscape plan during the construction phase, plan check phase. What this doesn't show is the enhanced landscaping that the applicant is committed to providing. This is one of the elevation styles, the Monterey style, 2-story units. This is the Spanish style elevations, and the applicant will have additional materials that he'll make during his presentation. In terms of fiscal impacts, the project will pay about $2.7 million in development impact fees, and that includes our DIF fees as well as non-city regional impact fees such as TUMF and MSHCP. The project is conditioned to be annexed into the citywide CFD, which will negate any fiscal impact to the city's general fund. And then the project will also pay into the Measure Z park tax, which based on the number of units will generate about $4,500 annually to our Measure Z funds. So staff's recommendations is for the Planning Commission to adopt the following resolutions. So the council will take the following actions: approval of Resolution 2017-07, adopting an MND and MMRP, 2017-08, approving the change of zone from RR to R3, the PC resolutions 2017-09, approving the track map subject to conditions, and PC resolution 2017-10, approving the plot plan to develop the 163-unit condominium project subject to the conditions. So that concludes my presentation, and I'm able to answer any questions the commission has.
Mr. Baskey, I'd like to make a disclosure that I was requested to meet with the developer, and I did so last week.
Does the commissioners have any comments or questions of Mr. Bassey? Okay. Okay, at this time, I'm going to open the public hearing and ask the applicant to come forward.
Chairman Smith, Larry Markham representing the applicant. If you could, Fred, if you could pull up the PowerPoint. And you should have received a hard copy of pretty much all your exhibits in color, so there was a request to do that, and we provided that, plus some additional exhibits. And as Mr. Bassey has said, we had a community meeting on March 6th. That was probably attended by 20 or 25 folks from the surrounding neighborhood. And from that meeting, we took a look at the project and went through some analysis, and extensive analysis. And literally, we went through, and it's in your package, we went through and did section cuts through all 15 adjacent lots, looking at our property from their property. And we also included that sort of twofold. We had we increased the landscaping, the density, and also increased the initial planting size. We went to 36-inch box trees on all that interface between the two. They're all evergreens. The specimen trees are fruitless olives. And also we agreed to put in a short ball at that time for headlight shielding. And that was what we presented to the folks when we went back on the 27th. We and again, we showed our grading, their existing grades, whether or not they were 1 or 2 floor homes, and what our elevations would look like relative to their elevations. Additionally, we also went in, and I think it's a little difficult to read in your initial, if you could possibly scroll maybe back. These are our perspective elevations. Leave it there, that's fine. There's an overall look. We did an entire elevation of the entire site as it's seen from the adjacent residential tract. Again, we showed where the existing grades hillside was. We showed what our grades were, what their grades were, and we did an initial planting elevation of what the landscaping would look like, and then we did a maturity elevation, which for these particular trees will take about 5 years. And we have our landscape architect, Mr. DiDonato, here tonight to address any detailed comments and concerns. Here what we did was we did a blow-up of that. And again, this is what, again, you're looking at the wall that's in the backyards of the existing homes, our grades and the street addresses for on each one of these. And then if you go to the next slide. And then this is the maturity elevation. Those trees will grow typically about 2 feet per year, and so in about 5 years they should pretty much reach their mature height for this particular species of trees. And so in addition to that, we had our architect take a look, Mr. Addison, who's here tonight also to address you. And what we did was we had him take a look and see what he could do on those in-view elevations. And we moved the upstairs windows up a little higher so they weren't at eye level. Those are sliders. They have to be sliders for code purposes. On the downstairs windows, though, we turned those on those end units adjacent to the existing residence into either frosted glass or inoperable windows. So they cannot either be open or cannot be seen out of. And in addition, there is the 6-foot wall. So, additionally to that, there also, if you go to maybe the landscape plan. Back. Keep going back. Be near the end of the diagrams. We did have a basketball court that was on the south boundary, and some of the neighbors brought up a very good comment and concern about the potential noise from that, so we eliminated the basketball court. We already had one bocce ball court. We actually incorporated a second bocce ball court on that boundary, which we felt would be more in keeping with the quieter nature of that south boundary. So the basketball court was eliminated. So those are basically the initial things that we did for the pursuant to the questions that came up at the March 6th meeting. Additionally, we went out and got proposals from a construction forensics firm to come in and give us a price to come in and videotape and photograph all 15 of the adjacent units, so we could establish both exterior and interior and potentially even the roofs, to establish a construction baseline before we would start construction, and we would be happy to accept that as a condition of approval. Also, there was concerns about the fact that they are, the adjacent residents are in Murrieta, and the project is in Wildomar, so we proposed that we would establish a construction hotline, if you will, that would both would ring both in the city of Murrieta to their Public Works Department and also to the city of Wildomar's Public Works Department, along with, and be recorded, and also to our construction trailer, so that, and we had pledged that that would be, any issues that would be raised or complaints would be responded to within 24 hours. And so there'd be a record and basically and a notice to each one of the 3 entities. In addition to that, we also talked about the noise buffering and the measures that would be taken, which is in the environmental impact report, and is basically already in the mitigation measures. I think it's one note with regard to that. We are required to have our construction staging as far away from the residents to the south as possible. It's up right in the curve where we're realigning Palomar. We had a second meeting on the 27th and had probably about 35 people at that meeting. There were still concerns, and so one of the concerns was about the visual aspect of our project relative to their project, looking into, if you will, their backyards and so forth. As a result of that, as opposed to the short wall, that's when we said we would agree to a full 6-foot-high block wall. We even said we would go to 8 feet, but Mr. Bassey informs me that that would not meet the city of Wildomar's code without, I guess, some substantial land use gymnastics. Also, there was a concern raised about the existing cul-de-sac that is stubbed into the property from Murrieta. That cul-de-sac is, there is a record easement for that cul-de-sac. That cul-de-sac does have to stay because it is a fire turnaround for that existing residential project to the south. There is a wood fence around it today. It was brought up by one of the residents that that fence was very dilapidated, and they had complained to the city of Murrieta. We were not aware of that, but we pledged that we will replace that fence with either a vinyl fence or some other like kind fence to replace it, so there's no longer an eyesore. Another question that came up during the second meeting was the concern about the start of construction relative to all the critters out there, and we proposed that we would offer to do a vector rodent program to before we started grading to try to minimize the migration of any of those species once the grading starts, which will happen to the south onto their properties. Also, we said that should there be, in the event that there should be any fugitive dust, which we would certainly hope that there would not be, but should there be any fugitive dust, we had pledged that we would offer to clean pools, homes, cars, that type of thing, if there was something that was brought to our attention. Additionally, and that was basically the total of the two meetings. There were some questions that were brought up during subsequent discussions with regard to the wall, and we have actually, and our landscape architect is here, we do have what's called a green wall concept. So that wall that we would build would have vines closely planted at its base, and literally would grow up and over that wall to the point where, and we have some examples that I can provide to you, that wall would literally be a green mass, if you will. It would not be a block wall. That would be a graffiti blackboard, if you will. We did have concerns about, I had raised concerns about having a block wall paralleling another block wall and sort of having the dead space in between, but the residents were adamant that they wanted to see a wall so people could not look over that wall. Again, if it could be higher, we'd be more than happy to make it higher. If it's possible to make it higher, that would be up to Mr. Bassey and Mr. Garber. I think it should be noted that the project will make the connection of existing Jefferson and Marietta to existing Palomar pursuant to the city's plans for that road. We will be realigning Washington into a T intersection, which in the future would go up the hill onto the town center property. And we will be paying for our fair share of that future signal. It doesn't meet warrants today, but it will be signalized in the future. Additionally, we will be flattening out and straightening out the curve. We are working jointly with the three property owners across the street, the Rhodes tract, the Seventh-day Adventist Church, and also the Williams property that is directly across from us on the interface with regard to the roads, the striping, and then we've have an agreed upon sort of joint striping alignment plan from the forerunners. So we think that's very important to the to the safety and to the traffic flow, and so we are will be in this part of our conditions of approval. We will be working with the property owner to the east of us. There are some land trades that will have to take place in order to build that road, and we've already had started those discussions with the Lions Lair folks. So. With that, we have our entire team here, our civil engineers here, our landscape architect, our civil engineer Rich Valdez from VSL, our landscape architect Misty Donato from Heimer Group, Jeff Addison is here, our architect, project architect, and myself, and we'll be more than happy to answer any questions that the commission may have, and then reserve time to come back up after public comment.
Commissioners, do you have any questions for the applicant?
I think it's more for staff at this point.
Okay. All right.
And I trust you did receive the booklets that I
Yes, we did. Okay. Thank you, Mr. Markham.
Thank you.
Mr. Commissioner Lloyd, would you like to ask staff address your concerns at this time?
Yes, the layout of the project definitely shows Jefferson tying in. Before the condominiums would be sold, that tie-in would be completed, correct?
The connection, Dan, maybe you can help out. I can't remember what the condition states about the completion of the road, but before any of the units are occupied, it's typically when the road improvements are done.
Okay. And initially it's going to be a stop sign at Palomar and Washington, or would it go to a light soon?
Well, as Larry mentioned, right now the warrant isn't there for signal, but they're going to pay their fair share, and at some point there will be a signal there. But so yes, it will be a stop sign.
Okay, it starts at stop sign. Okay. That was my question for that. Thank you.
Commissioner Thomas? Commissioner Strong? Okay.